In an age when queens were chosen not for love but for kingdoms, when beauty could build an empire or doom a dynasty, one woman entered the deadly orbit of Henry VIII and lived to tell the tale. Her name was Anne of Cleves, the fourth wife of England's most mercurial king. She was neither the fairest at court nor the most cunning, but she would prove to be the wisest. Her story is not one of passion or tragedy like Anne Boleyn's, nor of devotion like Jane Seymour's. It is a story of survival, quiet, clever, and astonishing. For in a court where queens lost their heads, Anne lost her crown and gained her freedom. Long before she set foot in England, Anne was born, Anna von Jülich-Kleefberg, in 1515, in the lush Rhineland town of Dusseldorf, part of the Duchy of Cleves, a small but strategic German state nestled between the Holy Roman Empire and the Low Countries. Her father, John III, Duke of Cleves, was known as the Peaceful, a rare quality in the fractious world of 16th century politics. Her mother, Maria of Jülich-Berg, came from noble stock, ruling nearby lands in her own right. Together they raised their children not in the opulent fashion of the French or English courts, but in the austere Lutheran simplicity of Northern Europe. Anne's education reflected this modest upbringing. She was taught to sew, manage a household, and read religious texts, but she never learned Latin, music, or dance, the refinements Henry VIII prized in a queen. Her tutors emphasized piety, obedience, and modesty, virtues that would serve her well, though they would also bewilder the glittering Tudor court she would one day enter. By 1539, Henry VIII was a widower once more. Jane Seymour, the only wife to bear him a son, Prince Edward, had died in childbirth 2 years before. His brief happiness had vanished into grief, and England itself stood isolated. The Catholic powers of Europe, Spain, and France had made peace, threatening to turn their might against Protestant England. Henry needed an ally, and he needed one fast. Enter Thomas Cromwell, Henry's brilliant but overconfident minister. Cromwell, ever the architect of England's Protestant Reformation, sought to tie England to the Protestant princes of Germany. Among them, the Duchy of Cleves stood as a promising bridge. Cleves was not rich, but it was strategically placed, and Duke John's family leaned toward the new Lutheran faith. A marriage between Henry and Anne of Cleves, his daughter, could secure Protestant support against any Catholic crusade. Cromwell arranged a match, but first Henry wanted to see his future bride. In an age without photography, portraits were politics. The king dispatched his court painter, Hans Holbein the Younger, to Cleves with a delicate mission: capture Anne's likeness faithfully. Holbein painted her in gentle tones, fair-skinned, modestly dressed, her gaze serene and composed. He returned to England with a masterpiece, and Henry, gazing upon it, declared himself satisfied. She is nothing fair, and yet her personage is well, one courtier would later say. Henry's approval was lukewarm, but politics overruled passion. The marriage treaty was signed. Anne departed Germany in late 1539, crossing the stormy channel and winter seas to meet a husband she had never seen. On January 1st, 1540, in a moment that would change both their lives, Henry decided to surprise his new bride. Impatient, romantic, and still addicted to pageantry, he rode to Rochester in disguise, hoping to reenact the chivalric tales he adored, the moment when a gallant king reveals himself to his delighted betrothed. But when Henry, disguised as a commoner, entered her chamber and attempted to embrace her, Anne did not recognize him. Worse, she recoiled in confusion. Henry's pride was shattered. He later complained bitterly that she was nothing so fair as she hath been reported. By the time of their wedding on January 6, 1540, Henry's enthusiasm had turned to loathing. He reportedly muttered to Cromwell that he could not consummate the marriage. "I liked her before not well," he said, "but now I like her much worse." The court watched in growing discomfort as the marriage faltered. Anne, unaware of Henry's disgust, conducted herself with dignity and sweetness, greeting courtiers, learning English customs, and trying to please her husband. But Henry's heart had already turned elsewhere, to the young and flirtatious Catherine Howard, Anne Boleyn's cousin. Behind the silken curtains of the Tudor court, whispers grew louder. The king had not consummated his marriage. He blamed Anne's supposed unsuitability, describing her body as ill-made. Others believed his age, ill health, and vanity were to blame. Cromwell's enemies, sensing opportunity, began to circle. By summer, Henry had decided. On July 9, 1540, after just 6 months of marriage, Anne was told their union would be annulled on the grounds of non-consummation and pre-contract that she had once been betrothed to the Duke of Lorraine's son. Anne submitted gracefully, signing the annulment papers without protest. Her reward? Freedom and fortune. Henry granted her Hever Castle, the former home of Anne Boleyn, Richmond Palace, a generous income, and the lifelong title of the king's beloved sister. Meanwhile, Thomas Cromwell, the man who had arranged the disastrous match, was executed that same month. His downfall was as swift as Anne's deliverance. Freed from the shadow of the throne, Anne became one of the most respected women in England. She remained on good terms with Henry, who often invited her to court. When he married Catherine Howard, Anne even attended her predecessor's wedding feast, smiling, gracious, and perhaps quietly triumphant. After Catherine's execution, Henry and Anne exchanged friendly letters. Some at court even whispered that the king might remarry her. He did not, but their cordial friendship endured. Anne remained in England through the reigns of Edward VI and Mary I, rarely involving herself in politics. She converted back to Catholicism under Mary's rule, adapting, as always, with quiet pragmatism. Anne of Cleves outlived all of Henry's wives. When she died in 1557, she was buried in Westminster Abbey, an honor denied to most of the others. Her tomb still rests there, simple yet dignified, much like the woman herself. She left behind no heirs, no dynastic legacy, but something far rarer in the Tudor world, a peaceful ending. Anne of Cleves entered history as the Flanders Mar, a cruel nickname born of Henry's wounded vanity. But time has proven her far wiser than the king who mocked her. She survived the most dangerous court in Europe without losing her head, her fortune, or her dignity. While others, Catherine Howard, Anne Boleyn, died for passion, Anne lived through prudence. In a kingdom ruled by ego and blood, she mastered the most important art of all, the art of survival. If one were to walk through Westminster Abbey today, among the gilded tombs of kings and queens, one might pause before the modest resting place of Anne of Cleves. There lies the woman who crossed the seas to marry a monster, found herself scorned and dismissed, and yet, by patience and grace, turned humiliation into triumph. Her story reminds us that sometimes the wisest victory is not to rule, but to endure.